Movers of the culture, of the culture. Movers of the movers of the culture. Movers of the culture, of the culture. Movers of the culture. Movers of the culture, of the culture. Movers of the culture, of the culture. Movers of the culture, of the culture. Movers of the movers of the culture. Welcome back, you guys, to another episode of Movers of the Culture. I do have a special guest here with us, and we're going to get right into it right after this, you guys. Stay tuned. From the quality to the turnaround to the pricing to the discounts and all of the free items you get when you order with Keela Design Studio, there's no reason to shop anywhere else. That's the only place I get my customized t-shirts from my company, for all of my artwork, holiday items. There's no other place that I'm rocking with. Make sure you guys go check them out. I'm rocking with it. Welcome back, you guys, to another episode of Movers of the Culture. And as I stated, I do have a special guest here with us today. Her name is DJ Camille. She deserves all the flowers in the world. She doesn't need an introduction, but I'm definitely going to give it to her anyway. So bear with me. It's a little wordy. So let's go here. She's an amazing DJ coming out of one of the, if not hottest places in the States for hip hop and R&B and rap genres, period, being ATL Shawty. She's an entrepreneur inside and outside of the music industry and continues to show the world why it's important to rebrand yourself and have multiple streams of income. She's true to the culture when it comes to the music, being one of the fewest DJs still that do have vinyl. And as we can see in the background, it is, she is a crate digger for sure. She has some of the most diverse and versatile sets in the game. You can all find them on her SoundCloud as well. She has had numerous residencies and is even an artist as well. If you guys don't know who I'm talking about by now, it is an honor to introduce you all to the one and only DJ Camille. How are we doing today?
Yay, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great as well. We definitely need some sound effects. I'm gonna get them and like pew 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 pew.
And the crowd goes wild.
Indeed, all of that. I'm doing amazing. To get into the question, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where you're from, and how you got that bug for music.
Well, I'm originally from a suburb outside of Washington, D.C., in Rockville, Maryland. And that's really where I got my start and where most of my influence comes from musically. Growing up in the northeastern part of the country, a lot of New York hip hop was really my influence. I would say it was like half New York rap and half Madonna, probably. What sort of like created me. Yeah, so that's really how like most of my influence comes from. I moved to Atlanta, pretty long time ago now. It really is home now for me. But I feel like, yeah, my influences are kind of a mix of like where I grew up and then like where I've spent, the last part of my life, which is here in Atlanta. So like what really got me into music was just being a fan of music, and wanting to be a part of it. And I started writing songs when I was little. I was probably like 12 or 13 when I wrote my first song. Then,
do you remember the lyrics or a part of it?
The first rap song I ever wrote, I remember, and I have it written down somewhere. I have like stacks and stacks of, notebooks and papers with all my writing. But yeah, I really just started writing songs and playing piano and taking voice lessons. And then I got turntables, and I really got my first pair of turntables to have a mic to practice my rhymes. That was really like the reason why I got turntables to begin with. And then it just sort of turned into, a DJ career. I started DJing about a year after I started practicing. So a lot of hours in the basement, labeling vinyl and counting my beats per minute and learning tempo and learning how to mix. That was really like, I spent just like most of my youth doing that pretty much.
Yeah. And what time frame was this? What age did you
Yeah, so like I would say I got my turntables when I was like 21. And so this was, I'm going to age myself, but this was a while ago. This was back in the 90s. late 90s. And
We
no,
wouldn't believe it.
early 2000s. I'd say early 2000s. And yeah, and I just started like playing music. I started doing club gigs for like, I think the first gig I had was at this place called State of the Union. It may still be there on U Street in DC. And I think I played for like $25, and I played in the back room, and it smelled like rats, dead rats, which were probably like dead inside the wall.
Oh man.
And I had like, I brought in all my crates, and I had everything labeled from, you know, from like 80 beats per minute all the way to like 120 beats per minute. And I was so nervous, you know, that I would like start at 80 and just like work my way up. Yeah. Yeah. So.
Word. So from when you started, so what age were you when you got your first gig? Because you started at 21 around.
Okay, so I think I got my tables when I was 21. I can't remember if I was 21 or 22, and then like a year later, so like
Oh,
22
wow.
or 23, I got my first gig.
Gotcha.
And yeah, and I just basically DJ'd anywhere that I could, so like all over DC, some places in Virginia, and the DJing kind of like went hand in hand with me being an artist. But you know, for many years I was like, I'm gonna rap, I'm gonna get a record deal. I had some very close calls with getting record deals. You know, I went out to LA, I had a meeting with Interscope. I had a jingle that I did on a radio station in DC that aired every day for 2 years. It opened up like the most popular like afternoon radio show with Al BD. And you know, just kind of got my feet wet there. And then I actually was with that meeting with Interscope that I was told I needed to find some new producers. And at the time, my mom had just moved back to Atlanta because she's from here originally. And she met this guy randomly who was a recording artist and worked at or recorded music in a studio here in Atlanta, and basically put me in contact with this guy named Dan Marshall, who I met up with when I came down to Atlanta. And I met with these guys named the Beat Bullies, who produced a lot for Outkast. And I found myself at Stankonia, playing a little piano for Andre 3000 and rapping for he and Big Boy. It was wild. Yeah.
Where now from that transition, what was that transition like? You know, coming from DC to moving to Atlanta, and then I'm not sure what time frame was that. Was that in the beginning of when, you know, Atlanta was bubbling and, you know?
Yeah, so this was back in, so I think I moved down here in 2000. This is so bad that I don't remember, but it was like maybe 2005, 2004, something like that. Yeah, I mean, Atlanta was really getting really established at that point. And this was like, you know, back in the day where rap music was so regional. You know, it was like your East Coast, or your West Coast, or your Midwest, or your, you know, and then Atlanta was coming up, and it was like, oh, the dirty South, you know. And so that was a whole movement in itself. Now I feel like when we look at music, we really don't categorize it the same way, which I'm really happy about. You know, genres sort of like get mixed and
Mixed in.
Yeah, it's like I feel like the labels of needing to compartmentalize things has kind of like gone to the side. And part of that, I think, is because making music is so accessible now for everybody that, you know, anybody can like download a program and start making beats, right?
Indeed.
So, because that's just like opened up the floodgates for musicians and for DJs too, with you know, Serato and all the programs that you have now to learn to DJ. It's just a lot more people are doing it. So I feel like there's just so much more being created. And so you don't have like all those, you know, typical boxes that, you know,
they try to put you in
coming up, you know?
For sure. So what was it like, you know, coming to Atlanta when it's, you know, Andre recently just said, you know, Atlanta, the South has something to say, and then, you know, actually putting in the work along with those DJs and those artists to make it to where Atlanta is now. Because now Atlanta basically runs the hip hop and rap industry. So what was that whole experience like?
You know, for me, it wasn't so, for me personally, I was so focused on being an artist. I feel like the DJing was really a vehicle for me. And it was something that kind of gave me legs to say, you know, like, it's just another skill to have. And it's something else to bring to the table. And I kind of like, you know, like I said, I kind of fell into it because I really just wanted, records and a mic to practice my rhymes. And then it just kind of took on a life of its own. So when I first got here, I really was so focused on still getting that deal and still just being an artist first.
Gotcha.
And the DJ was something that kind of fell to the side, kind of since then, the DJing has kind of become more of my main bread and butter. I mean, up until 2020, I mean, when everything,
ceased and stopped.
It's like, I don't know what's going on. But up until the last few years, really, I've been really more focused on DJing as opposed to, sadly, being in the recording studio. But a lot of that is just like where I am in my personal life. I got married, I had a baby, and, I've been home with my son. And then, and so it's just kind of like little by little, I've kind of gotten away from being in the studio till 4 a.m. My life is not conducive to that at the moment,
Completely understand.
Yeah, but
completely understand. So with, so while focusing on being an artist, what was that experience like? When I came down to Atlanta, I just met so many people that were so supportive. The energy was there. The shows were there. What was it like for you? Coming from DC to Atlanta, it's a whole different. I would imagine it's it's quite different as far as the atmosphere for music. So what was that like?
One of the things I noticed when I first came down here is it took, I think, 6 months before I heard anybody honk their car horn. Okay. The whole vibe down here was so different from what I was used to. I came from such a kind of very politically charged environment, from being anywhere that you live near the DC area is that just permeates everywhere. But that sets a different tone and a different type of environment. Atlanta was much more kind of like the New York of the South in a way. I mean, it's definitely the South here. It's not, nowhere is like New York, but if you were to, it just more kind of fluid with the scene and people's energy, and yes, and more welcoming, less kind of judgy, and more
prove yourself.
Yeah, more like kind of anything goes. And I think I mean, I really think Outkast had a lot to do with that, because of how look how out of the box they were coming into hip hop, and just how, how Andre dressed it, and just the whole their whole energy and vibe was so different from your standard baggy pants and what it was
they definitely changed.
So, yeah, and I feel like that says something about I don't know if it's so much like that anymore, because I think the world is kind of it's just such a more blended kind of, like I said, it's not as isolated with oh, there's this vibe to it or that vibe to it. It's all music is just kind of so crossed cultured now,
Indeed, coming together for sure.
Yeah. So no, I did find it, I found it pretty easy to navigate, I don't know, networking and, meeting the people I needed to meet, and kind of being in the right environments. Although I think that has a lot to do with just the individual and how you,
Indeed.
Carry yourself.
How hard you really want it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if you really want it really bad, you're going to get yourself in those rooms, in those positions, to be able to rub elbows with the people that you really need to.
I do. I think so. And then I think some of it is just, some of it's luck. And then, yeah, I mean, I can look back and think of certain situations I was in, and how would I have done something differently? And it's hard to know when you're trying to forge your career and figure out, where you stand your ground and where you can bend. When I was trying to get a record deal, everything was you had to fit into a certain box. And I imagine it's still probably like that to some degree. People always want to compare you to somebody. They always want to, I mean, that's just what, I think that's human nature, is to have to put something in a category so that we feel we have some sort of idea or sense
understanding
about it,
of what it is.
Safe. Yeah, it's we have to side with something so we can identify who we are. It's just some sort of psychological thing, but yeah, so I did my best.
Got you. All right. So with the transition, or not transition, well, from the whole experience of starting out, coming to Atlanta, then, more recently focusing on being a DJ.
Yeah.
Was there ever a time when you were especially when you're having the meetings and things like that, was there ever a time where you were I don't know, was there ever any doubt? And then how did you overcome that doubt? Was it like your support system with your husband, or was there anyone else to give you inspiration to keep going?
Yeah, I think the thing that I would always come back to is when I'm in my studio and I'm behind my turntables or I have a mic in my hand and I'm practicing, those are the moments that just bring about all my self-confidence. And that's what takes you back to remembering, you know what, I have something special. And sometimes it is being in the room with somebody that you're DJing for, or you're spitting a rhyme for, and they're just like somebody who you respect, who tells you, whoa, like, you're really talented, and like, don't let that talent go to waste, or whatever it is. That those conversations that I've had over the years with certain individuals that have said, like, I mean, ultimately, I think you have to just believe in yourself, because people are going to have opinions all day long, and even people who rise to huge success, there's still people every day, especially now with social media, that are going to tell them that, they ain't shit. Okay. But at the end of the day, it's like, you have to just know who you are. How do you know who you are? I think, it's like, you got to put in the work. I spent a lot of years, hours and hours and hours practicing, writing, rapping, scratching, just honing my skills. Though, doing that, just that practice alone, whether it's like in front of a crowd or in front of someone I really respect who gives me validation, or just by myself in the studio, doesn't matter, because it's like, ultimately at the end of the day, that experience, the feeling that you get, that confidence, that's where it really comes from.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I couldn't have said any better way. I definitely agree with that. That you got to have the self-confidence, and once you put it in the work, like you stated, no matter what no one else says, you have your your track record for yourself, and whether anyone their perception of that track record really doesn't matter at the end of the day, because you put the work in.
Exactly. And I think that doesn't take away from having a bad show and saying, you know what, this is where I messed up. I mean, I can look back on experiences and think, you know what, I wasn't prepared, or, I was too cocky and not prepared enough, or, I knew I was prepared, but I didn't have like my little edge, or, or then sometimes where everything comes together and you're like, man, I killed that, and it was amazing. And I just think, like, life is such a mixed bag. You're going to have great experiences, and you're going to have experiences that you look back and you think, I really could have done better. And maybe had I done better, maybe something would have happened. But that's when you just have to keep pushing forward. And I think if you really love what you do, you're always going to do it. I mean, I'm always going to make music. I'm always going to DJ, no matter what, 2020 is throwing at me.
Indeed.
It's like, you just, you keep doing it because that's what you love. Right.
Indeed, for sure. All right. And the next sections are going to be a quick couple more light light sections. The first section is explain those pictures. I got a couple pictures here. Just give us a couple background details on them, what's going on here. And the first one is this one.
Yeah, that was at I think it was an album release. Yeah, a listening party with 8-Ball and MJG. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. They're great. Actually, I was in the studio once with DJ Krills, once or twice, where MJG was in there, like sitting in there while I was recording vocals, and I was like so nervous. I was like, oh my God, what is he thinking of what I'm doing? So cool though. Yeah. So yeah, a buddy of mine does a lot of production for them, DJs for them. DJ Krills, shout out to DJ Krills, super dope, talented producer, DJ, artist extraordinaire. So that was at a listening party with them. That was fun.
Word, man, to be able to meet them, that's crazy. And they're also legends in the game as well. So
totally.
I can only imagine all the people you've rubbed shoulders with and got to meet. Like, we're gonna get some more into it though. And the next picture though is, let's see here. All right, so there's the next picture.
Oh, that's my beautiful husband and son. That was at a family dinner pre-COVID, back in the good old
What?
days when we were outside.
Word, no. And what, we'll get into it a little later, but it's amazing to see that you guys. I watched a lot of your, seen a lot of your pictures more recently, and it's all of family, especially during these times. So I love going to people's pages, whether they have a career in music or not, and seeing them, display their family and the happiness. So, nah, that's super special to have for sure.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I feel really fortunate and lucky, to have, a great husband and, a great son. I always wanted a son. And he's named after my grandfather, my late grandfather, Charlie. So
Oh,
yeah, that's a real blessing.
Right, no, that's man. Yes, it is. All right, and let's see here. So the next section is a couple questions. So the first one is going to be best place in Atlanta for wings.
Right. So you know what? I'm a vegetarian.
Oh, nice. Now I know there's places. Let's switch it up then. What's the best vegan place?
There's two really great vegan places in Atlanta that I love. Actually, I mean, there's a lot. You've probably heard of the Slutty Vegan. We actually went over there a few months. This was before last year sometime, but the line was literally like down the block, and we were like, we can't. We had our son with us. Drive another time. Yeah, her stuff is really like blown up, which is I'm just so happy to see. Urban Fix, which is like spelled HERBAN Fix. That's one of my favorite places. We actually had our wedding brunch there. And then the other place is the Vegetable Garden. That's another really great vegan restaurant. And I mean, I'm not totally vegan. I'm really a pescatarian. I do eat seafood. I haven't been able to kick that. I've pretty much been able to kick all dairy for the most part, which is a huge thing. But yeah, I mean, I just love animals. I always felt conflicted about eating animals, and I haven't had red meat in like I don't know, it's been a really long time. Chicken is something that occasionally I cook for my husband or my son if it's like free range and organic, but otherwise we really are pretty straight vegetarian, pescatarian household.
Well, nah, that's super special because I've also, along with a lot of people, especially during these times, trying to become healthier and more conscious of what we're eating. So yeah, it's really important because if you really pay attention to the details that they give, and the details are out there of how unhealthy the food is, it's just sometimes we're just so stubborn.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it just amazes me when I'm at the grocery store and I see like what people put in their grocery cart, especially when they have little kids with them, and I just like want to be like, oh my God, that's like child abuse. Like, what are you? You can't just eat processed food all day. Like it's like our bodies need real food.
Indeed, and I'm becoming that person too. I'm judging everyone. I don't care. It's with love, but I'm judging everyone.
No, it's like I'm such an open-minded person, but I do find myself like, yeah, I know exactly. But I mean, all we can do is just try to like, spread information about it, and that it is out there and it is so accessible, and it seems like it would be so like second nature to people to think like, oh yeah, like this is healthy and this isn't, but for some reason it's just not. But some of that also has to do with the fact that we have industries that are kind of like running our country, sadly, that there's a lot of profit to be made with keeping people sick. So that's a whole nother rabbit hole to go down. But yeah, so you really have to do your research, but eat as much plant-based organic food as you can, especially the dirty dozen, the foods that are really high in pesticides, which are anyway, you can do your research on that, but look it up, the dirty dozen.
We'll make sure everyone goes and look that up for sure. Make sure you guys do. Next question, which one is better, being a DJ or an artist?
Well, monetarily, being a DJ is better because if you have a skill that you can go with it, people are hiring, So in that sense, it's like more of a guaranteed, like, you know, it's kind of a more of a guaranteed career. It's not guaranteed, but you can, it's more practical, a
Indeed.
more practical application of your artistry. Being an artist is something I think that, you know, if you're an artist, you're an artist. And again, like I said, like no one can take that away from you. I think they both are rewarding in different ways. DJing is what pays. Being an artist, if you really want to be successful, requires, a lot of hard work and some luck, I think. But yeah, so they're both just very different, but I love doing both. And that's kind of like why I like doing different things. I mean, and those are not the only two things that I do. I have a lot of interests, and I feel like if you can turn what you love into, making money from it, then, that's a great place to be. Right?
Indeed. Indeed. And, we talked a little bit about, history of, your artwork, being an artist. You've worked with Andre 3000. Who are some other, artists or producers or, some other experiences that you cherish that you were able to, live out, whether it was in a studio or, helping an artist, break their song or anything of that sort?
Probably my time spent with Killer Mike and Rock D the Legend when I was first here in Atlanta. I recorded a lot of music with them, and that was just some of the best times of my life were like working in the studio with them. Yeah.
What was that like, Killer Mike? Wow.
Yeah. We did a whole project together where now this is something that was like really strange for me because I always wrote my own rhymes, and the idea of somebody else like writing rhymes for me was like, hell no, I'm not gonna. Yeah. But Mike and Rock D were like writing the rhymes. They would go in the studio and rap, and then I would go in and like listen and rap along, and we created an entire project that way. That music is somewhere on some hard drive somewhere.
It never came out.
To me, yeah, we had like this is all part of this. It'll all be in the book one day, right? But
sure.
Yeah, but that was like going to rap college for me. It really was, or like graduate school. It really, because I'd spent years writing and rapping and practicing, but being in the studio with those two guys was just it kind of polished me off. I remember I saw Mike. I mean, I typically, well, again, like this year, I haven't gone anywhere. I think last year I missed his birthday, but the year before that, usually I go to his birthday parties. But a few years ago, I was at Stankonia, and he was recording one of his albums at the time. I don't know if it was one of Run the Jewels or it was prior to that, but we took a little ride together up to the like corner store or whatever, just me and Mike. And he was like, Camille, he's like, no matter what, he's like, you can rap your ass off. And I was like, thanks, Mike. It's kind of like moments like that, that just kind of like, it's like my journey has been like long and windy, and, I've had highs and lows, but it's like, you have moments like that and you're just like, man, all right, you know what? Someone like that respects what I do and believes in my talent, and, and that's really nice.
Indeed. You in a sense, I mean, you won without you, some people want the acknowledgement from millions of people, but I can only imagine what that feeling is like to get it from someone of his stature. Like he's a legend in the industry and in the culture itself. So I can only imagine what that feels like for him to say that your rhymes are, up there.
Yeah, it meant a lot, Yeah. So I've had some really like great experiences along the way, in my music career and also in being a makeup artist. I've worked in TV for years in DC and here in Atlanta. And I've gotten to meet a lot of really interesting people doing that too. And, one day I'll put it in my autobiography.
Indeed. And talking a little bit more about the music itself, I read that you had let's see here, you had created some theme songs for a couple of NFL teams.
Yeah, I did. So, this is something I would like. This is kind of like a little piece of advice I would give to anybody who, is trying to, whatever industry you're trying to break into. The more places you can be and the more skills that you have, the more you can kind of like try to connect those experiences and create new opportunities. So, for instance, so I did 2 theme songs. I did one for the Redskins when I lived in DC, and I did one for the Falcons here in Atlanta. Both of those came about very organically, but in completely different ways. Okay. So when I was in DC, so I mentioned I've been a makeup artist for a long time for different news stations, right? So one of the TV stations I worked with in Washington was the local ABC affiliate. And they had a show in the sports department. This was when Norv Turner was the coach of the Redskins. And it was like, I think it was called the Norv Turner Show. It was like some show that we aired on the station where I was a makeup artist. Okay. And I was friendly with, everybody in the sports department. And occasionally I would find myself at, the Redskins, practice where they would practice or whatever. I'd go over there to, do makeup or whatever I was doing. And the guys in the sports department, they knew I rapped, they knew I DJ'd, and they were like, you need to do a theme song for the show. So I ended up writing, a rap about the Redskins and, and they use it on the Norv Turner Show. So that was just like a way of like, you kind of like, you're connecting the dots with like, it could be something totally outside of music, but it may circle back around and create an opportunity for you in music, right? And then when I was here in Atlanta, I ended up through some friends of mine over at a guy named Steak Shapiro's house. And Steak Shapiro had a radio show all about the Falcons. And so I did a theme song for the Falcons for that radio show. And so that, and that just kind of like, I just created that opportunity. Just like I happened to be, at his house and started talking to him about how I rap and bam, there it was. So I got to go on his show and perform my Falcons theme song. So that was really cool.
Word. Nah, that's, like I said, you continue to do things that a lot of artists try to get to. We try to get those opportunities to get our music played on the radio, to represent an NFL team, not just one but 2. It's amazing. It's amazing, and that's what this show is all about. Allowing people to see, the person behind the mic, the person behind the DJ equipment. So I really appreciate this. A couple more questions.
I'm not gonna sit up here and tell you that I used to be bald and that this product magically brought my hairline and my hair back. It's not one of those commercials. This is a commercial for Lady K Growth Promote. Man, it works. It's all natural. It's done in-house, black-owned company with a hair stylist that has more than 10 plus years under her belt. She takes it serious. And it definitely works, and it feels amazing.
We touched on it a little bit. Makeup. I saw there was jewelry as well. What are some other ventures that you're invested in, whether it's time or money that you're doing right now?
Well, since COVID hit, which has really complicated a lot of things. I mean, this has just put a lot of people in some really precarious positions. I'm very fortunate that I have, a husband who's been able to work all through this whole crisis. It's really hit our industry hard. I mean, I do think like, things are going to change and the world is going to go back to some sense of normalcy, hopefully a new normal, because I think a lot of things that are coming out of this, it's a very revelatory period of time. A lot of people are having existential crisis, we're all kind of analyzing like, well, what are we doing? And are we happy? And why are we doing what we're doing? And are we happy where we live? Are we happy with our relationships? Everybody's like kind of analyzing everything because this whole pandemic has really been like the great equalizer, I feel like, because, I mean, it hasn't affected everybody the same, but it's affected a lot of people. It's hit a lot of people really hard.
In some way.
In some way, right? So for me, we just well, one of the things that last year I designed and was the project manager for a home that we built for my mom, actually on my property. I designed the whole thing, you know, which I'm really into architecture. That's just like another interest I have.
Wow.
But I designed the whole house, and we didn't hire a general contractor. I was the project manager, and I had all my subcontractors, and I oversaw for about 8 months. We built a house. And my mom moved into this house literally the last day of January. So this was like right when things were starting to heat up with COVID. My mom is older. She's survived pancreatic cancer. And because of that, she's a diabetic. And so she's in a very high risk category for this. So, and I have a 4-year-old who I had to pull out of school because of the pandemic, who's home with me, you know, 24/7, which is awesome. But anyway, so it's like, I have to be very cautious about not getting my mom sick. So for me personally, I've had to pretty much stop almost every opportunity that I've been given, even since like, I mean, there was a few months where like no one was really working, but people are starting to get back out, and, you know, people are starting to go out again, hopefully wearing a mask and being safe until this nightmare is over. But just so we don't prolong the spread. But for me, I really have not been able to go out and take gigs because of risk of bringing home, you know, COVID to my mom, who, you know, is not, you know, knock on wood, I don't think would do well if she got it. So, so anyway, that was like a really long way of getting back around to answering your question, which
no, we need it all.
Yeah. Did you need all that? Okay. I have a lot of interest. So, well, one of the things, you know, so I do makeup, I do DJing, I make jewelry. The makeup and the DJing has really had to come to a halt because that requires me to be in people's faces. Okay. So, you know, what I'm really into right now that I'm learning about is the stock market. Actually, that's like my latest passion. So every spare minute I have really is watching Trader TV, reading, listening to Audible books, and you know, learning as much as I can about the stock market, which I've always had, you know, I've dabbled in it in the past as, you know, with like long-term investments, but yeah, so that's what I'm super into at the moment.
Word, day trading. Hey, I tried it out as well. You have to have like a certain amount in order to make, you know, continuously trade throughout the day. You have to have a certain amount inside of it. So I was like, but it's definitely fun and interesting to figure out, like, you know how commodities are the prices are changing from minute to minute, and how some stay consistent. And in a sense, you get to see how the world works.
Exactly. It's sort of like mass psychology. It's watching mass psychology all at once. And that's the thing I think that, I mean, that and the making money part, you know, obviously interests me, but the psychological aspect of it is really interesting. And where is the world going? You know, what is becoming of value to us, and what is going to be antiquated? You know, and as far as what you mentioned about having a certain amount in your account, if you have an offshore broker, you know, you can have less than 25,000 in your trading account, but you have to have an offshore broker. You know, what I would recommend to anybody who's looking into that is you need to do your homework, because the market will take your money if you don't know what you're doing.
Indeed. Indeed it will, and it will not say sorry.
No, it won't. It's unapologetic.
Indeed, it say just come, try again.
You're right, exactly.
Word. Nah, that's really, you know, that's special to, I mean, a lot of people during these times are finding different ways to, you know, bring that income in, and not just bring the income in, but bring that happiness back in that they might have, you know, went away from in order to secure their rent, to secure certain bills and things of that sort. So it's amazing to see that everyone's, you know, finding something to do, whether it's self-reflection or, you know, picking up a new hobby. So that's super special. With the trading, has things been going good for you?
So, I mean, my next step is to simulate. You know, I wouldn't dare trade with real money until I have a proven
100%
strategy. And I think that's one of the pitfalls that I think a lot of people, you know, and I don't want to be preachy because I'm not there yet to say, hey, this is my advice for, you know, but yeah, you have to really do your homework. I mean, there's no such thing as get rich quick. I mean, I don't believe in that. So, you know, anything that you want to do, that you want to, you know, just the same way that I approached, you know, learning to DJ was spending hours and hours and hours practicing. You know, you have to learn, if you want to learn a skill, you got to put in the work, you got to put in the time. You know, I guess it's just figuring out, you know, what that is. But I think one of the things that 2020 has allowed us or afforded us, if it's taken a lot of things away, is thinking outside the box, thinking creatively, and thinking of something, you know, maybe that you would have never thought of before. I mean, I've, you know, dabbled a little bit in the stock market in the past. My family certainly has. It's not something that's, you know, 100% foreign to me, but it's nothing that I ever would have thought I would have had a real passionate interest in. But somehow all the forces have aligned where it's like, this is something I'm just so into, right? So it's like, yeah, I think, you know, once we get out of this mess, I feel like we're all going to look back and be like, oh my God, that was the hardest year, but maybe the best year in certain respects. You know, I hope that I can look back at this year like that, because it's definitely had a lot of challenges for me, as it has for, you know, most people that I know.
Indeed. And you know, with that being said, with these times being so hard on a lot of people, what has, you know, we talked about it a little earlier with the family. What has your family, you know, been for you? Have they been like that anchor to keep you afloat, or, you know, what's been something that's been able to get you through these times?
Yeah, I would say my family. I talk to my brother a lot. You know, I have like my therapy sessions with my brother. Well, I mean, we're all forced in some respects to spend so much time with our family. You know, one of the challenges has been like, we've had to cancel 2 vacations. You know, we were going to go to Florida. We like to go to Destin every year, and we had to cancel twice this past summer because the first time, you know, we had to cancel. And then the second time we thought, okay, we're going to, you know, go in August and it'll be like, things will be cooled down. And then it's like, no, they're not cooled, you know. So that's been really hard. Or just going out to like, you know, dinner with my husband. Like, we haven't gone to a restaurant since, I don't know if we've been to a restaurant this entire year. Maybe back in January we went, and then, like, that's it. We have not gone out, and that's been really crazy. So it's like we're kind of going through it together. So we lean on each other. I mean, I think in some respects we make each other crazy sometimes, because like we're all together all the time. You know, particularly it's been hard on my son, who needs socialization. He's 4. You know, he needs to be around other little kids. And, you know, now that we're seeing like an uptick in cases, I finally took him to a playground, you know, a couple days a week. But now I'm like, oh, I don't want to take him to a playground anymore because I'm too worried about, you know, transmission. It's just crazy. So yeah, no, but I definitely think like we've grown. My husband and I have definitely grown closer as a couple through this. I mean, sometimes like the hard times do make you stronger, you know, and we've had to rely on each other. My husband's Romanian, and he hasn't been able to see his family in quite a while. We went to Europe a couple years ago to visit, but you know, we were going to go this past year. We weren't able to go, and he's like, he has to go see his family. So we're hoping by next year we can make the trip, you know.
Well, not because family is a lot. I mean, at the end of the day, they're everything that you have. So they're the support system, the people that, you know, believe in you the most, the people that, you know, gonna call you out on your BS when you need it. They're everything at the end of the day.
Exactly.
So, that's super special.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, especially having my mom so close. That's been amazing. So, yeah.
That's super special. All right, and before I let you go, one more question. What has let's see which one I'm gonna ask you. You know, okay, yep, this one I'll ask you. What's next for DJ Camille? You know, outside of, you know, probably in a year or long-term goal, what's one goal that, you know, that you're really trying to focus on right now, or whether you're focused on it or not?
Yeah, my next goal really is DJing in Europe. That's really my next goal. Yeah, that's right there at the top of the list. And it kind of ticks a lot of boxes for me because I love Europe. My husband loves Europe. He has a lot of friends and family spread all over the place, not just in Romania. And my vibe with DJing, I mean, you know, I started off, like I said, in DC, and then came here. I have a very eclectic taste in music, you know, which probably comes from the whole, like, I'm half Wu-Tang and half Madonna, you know, wrapped up into one person with a little Nas and a little KRS. Okay.
Definitely versatile.
And a little MOP, you know, but I still have like my little, like, I love like shiny pop music at the same time, but like good pop music, like great 80s, like I love, you know, Dua Lipa. She's like one of my favorite artists right now. I think she's so talented. You know, I'm kind of like half her, half hip hop. I think my style and what I'm into would really, really play well over there. Europeans are like very open-minded and love to party. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to playing over there. That's really like, that's the next chapter for me.
All right. Well, we definitely put it out there into the universe, so it's definitely gonna happen. It's definitely gonna happen. But before I let you go, is there anything else that we haven't talked about, you know, that you want to share with the people, whether it's now, any news, any projects coming up, anything at all that we didn't, you know, get to discuss?
Yeah, I would say stay tuned for 2021 when this nightmare is over. And I'm going to be back out there and be playing again and be creative again. And some of that just has to do with having the time to do it. It's, you know, one of the challenges for me has been having my son home, which is, you know, great that I get to be with him all the time, but also, you know, he should be in school. So next year he'll be in school and I'll have my days freed up again to really be more creative and have the space and the time and the energy to be back in the studio and be, you know, cooking up some new goodies for everybody.
Indeed. Now I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to continuing to watch, you know, your journey that you get to share with us through IG and other outlets as well. I just want to say thank you on behalf of myself. Thank you on behalf of all the celebrity artists, music that you play, underground, everyone that you've made their day by partying, having good energy, people that tune in to your IG like I do to get to see the family and see laughter and see people, you know, enjoying life. Thank you for sharing your story with us. Man, thank you on behalf of the culture. Thank you. And it's been a pleasure. We definitely have to do it again, catch up in the near future. But like I said, thank you so much. And it's been an honor to sit here with you, Miss DJ Camille.
Oh, thank you so much. It means a lot to me too. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you next time.
Indeed. All right, you guys. Well, you guys heard it. It was amazing interview with Miss DJ Camille. You guys go check out the replay it. That's what I want to say. Replay it and watch it again. And stay tuned to the next episode. This is Movers of the Culture. Sitting here with Miss DJ Camille. I'm your host, Thomas Joseph. Peace out, you guys.
Movers of the culture, of the culture. Movers of the movers of the culture. Movers of the culture, of the culture. Movers of the culture. Movers of the culture, of the culture. Movers of the culture, of the culture. Movers of the culture, of the culture. Movers of the culture.